monopolist with another central monopolist. A lot of commercial banks aren't terribly excited about that. Is small, but wants to get big and gain market power.
Hey there, future millionaires. Welcome back to the channel. It's so good to see you again. I really hope you're having an absolutely amazing day, no matter where you are in this beautiful world of ours. Today, we're diving deep into XRP, and wow, do I have some exciting stuff to share with you. I've been reading through your comments, and so many of you have been asking me the same question. What were the big catalysts that drove XRP's massive run back in 2018? Well, guess what? I'm about to break it all down for you and show you exactly how those catalysts compare to what we're seeing right now. Trust me, this is going to blow your mind. Let me kick things off with this incredible insight from Credible Crypto. Listen to this. XRP was actually one of the worst performing major cryptocurrencies in 2017. I know, that sounds crazy, right? But here's where it gets absolutely wild. In just 30 days after Bitcoin hit its peak, XRP exploded with a mind-blowing 10 times rally. Can you believe that? And get this, by the end of that cycle, XRP had gained a staggering 62,947%. That's a 629% return, people. The lesson here? Never ever count XRP out just because it's having a slow start. Sometimes the biggest surprises come from the most unexpected places. Now, Credible Crypto posted this back in 2021. And here's what's really interesting about that 2021 run. It wasn't nearly as spectacular as 2017. And there were two major reasons why. First, we had that brand new Ripple versus SEC lawsuit hanging over everything like a dark cloud. Second, XRP got delisted from tons of major exchanges, which basically killed its momentum. But here's the crazy part. Even with all that drama and uncertainty weighing it down, XRP still managed to hit $1.92. Just imagine what could happen when all these obstacles are finally out of the way. But wait, let's dig deeper here. What actually led up to all this chaos? What was the real story behind this whole Ripple versus SEC nightmare? Well, here's where things get absolutely fascinating and honestly, a little suspicious if you ask me. Picture this. It's 2017, and Brad Garlinghouse drops this bombshell. He reveals that 15 senior executives from JP Morgan showed up at Ripple's office that very afternoon. Now, why do you think they were there? They weren't just stopping by to say hello. These banking giants were there to see exactly what Ripple was building. And here's the kicker. They wanted to get their hands on some of that massive XRP escrow. We're talking about billions of dollars here, folks. But it gets even more interesting. Gary Gensler, who would later become the SEC chair, the same guy who's been going after crypto left and right, actually broke this whole situation down during his time at MIT. And what he said will absolutely shock you. Take a listen to this.
Monopolist with another central monopolist. A lot of commercial banks aren't terribly excited about that. Maybe you're going to have to give some ownership. Maybe you'll have to give 50% of your ownership to the 20 banks that are now, part of this. I mean, there are other ways to build incentive systems. Maybe you put a native token in there, and you give them the native token. So there may be other incentive ways to beat the current monopolist. But I, having been around commercial banks for a long time, they really are looking for ways to replace their aggregators in their back office, whether it's clearing, settlement, exchanges, credit agencies. But they are deeply understanding, because they are pretty ambitious and very good at making money as well. They deeply understand that every idea that's pitched to them is somebody who currently is small but wants to get big and gain market power. So they're also always thinking about how to ensure that there's a check to slow down your startup from gaining market power 5, 10, and 15 years from now.
So here's what I think really went down. And this is going to connect all the dots for you. Picture this scenario. JP Morgan walks into Ripple's office, sees this incredible technology that could completely revolutionize how banks move money around the world, and what's their first thought? Oh wow, this is amazing. We should work together. Nope. Instead, they're thinking, this is a threat to everything we've built. We need to shut this down fast. So what do? They march straight over to Jay Clayton, who was running the SEC at the time, and basically say, hey, you need to do something about this Ripple situation. And boom. That's exactly how this whole Ripple versus SEC legal nightmare got started. Then Gary Gensler steps in, and what happens? He keeps Ripple tied up in court for 4 long years. 4 years of uncertainty, 4 years of legal battles, 4 years of XRP being held back from reaching its true potential. But here's where things get really exciting. The moment we got a new administration in the White House, everything started to shift. And you know what happened? XRP immediately started showing signs of life again. In my opinion, the price began recovering because the market finally realized we were heading toward a level playing field. No more political games, no more regulatory warfare, just fair competition. And that's when XRP started to wake up from its long sleep. All right. But now let's get back to the juicy stuff. I know you're all dying to know, what were those game-changing catalysts that absolutely exploded XRP's price back in 2018? Well, I've got the perfect breakdown for you, and this comes straight from Grok, so you know this is going to be good. ... Now here's where things get really interesting. The crypto market absolutely went crazy in late 2017. Picture this. Bitcoin was on an insane rocket ride, shooting up from just $1,000 all the way to nearly $20,000 by December. That's when XRP caught the wave too. Everyone was talking about crypto. Your friends, the news, even your grandmother probably heard about Bitcoin. Whew. This massive fear of missing out, or FOMO as we call it, was everywhere. Mainstream media couldn't stop covering crypto stories, and guess what? XRP was right there in the spotlight getting its share of attention. New investors were flooding in left and right, and here's what happened to XRP. Brace yourself for this. In December 2017, XRP's price took off like a rocket. We're talking about jumping from just 20 cents to over $2 in a matter of weeks by early January. Why? Well, as Bitcoin's price got too expensive for many newcomers, they started looking for the next big thing. And money began flowing into altcoins like XRP. But that's not all. Ripple was also making some serious waves with their partnership announcements and enterprise adoption news. And here's where things got really exciting. Major financial giants were starting to take notice. We're talking about household names like American Express and Santander. These weren't just any companies. These were the big players actually testing out Ripple's technology. Can you imagine? Payments that used to take days could now happen in just 4 seconds. That's faster than it takes to grab a coffee. This was revolutionary stuff. But wait, it gets better. In December 2017, Japan's SBI Holdings, a massive financial company, decided they wanted in on the action. They partnered up with Ripple to create something called SBI Ripple Asia, and they didn't stop there. They got Japanese credit card companies to join a whole consortium focused on using blockchain for sending money across borders. Now picture this. We're talking about potentially disrupting a $5 trillion industry. That's trillion with a T. The entire cross-border payments market was suddenly looking at XRP as a game changer. Institutional investors were starting to pay serious attention, thinking, maybe this little digital coin could actually transform how money moves around the world. And then there was all the buzz about which exchanges would list XRP next. Now here's where the hype really exploded. There were these crazy rumors flying around about Coinbase potentially listing XRP in late 2017. And let me tell you, back then Coinbase was like the golden ticket. They were the kingmaker. When they listed a coin, boom. We're talking 2 to 5 times price pumps almost guaranteed. Everyone was crossing their fingers hoping XRP would get that coveted spot, even though it didn't actually happen until 2019. But here's something wild that was happening. Over in South Korea, XRP was trading for 30 to 50% more than everywhere else. Korean exchanges like Upbit and Bithumb were going absolutely crazy for XRP. The local demand was insane. And you know what? That's still happening today. South Korea is still crushing it when it comes to XRP trading. Then there was all this excitement about XRapid launching, which is what we now call Ripple's on-demand liquidity. Sounds impressive, right? But here's the thing. Most of these catalysts were just hype. They didn't actually materialize during that 2017 run. A lot of this stuff happened much later. But now? Oh man, 2025 is a completely different story. We've got real catalysts happening right now. The ETFs are here. The legal case is finally over. We might actually get regulatory clarity from Washington, and ISO 2022 is going live next month. The ETF inflows alone are going to be absolutely insane for XRP. We're not talking about rumors and maybes anymore. These are real, tangible catalysts happening in real time as we head into alt season. And that's exactly why I'm so bullish on this upcoming run. I genuinely believe we're about to witness something as explosive as what we saw back in 2017 and 2018. Maybe even bigger. We're talking about price levels that are going to absolutely blow people's minds. You know all those skeptics out there? The ones constantly saying, oh, XRP can never hit this price because of market cap, or it's impossible to reach that level based on previous cycles. Whew. Well, I think they're all about to eat their words. But here's something really interesting that's happening right now. We're seeing actual scarcity starting to play out. Think about it. The majority of XRP that was sitting on exchanges, it's already gone. People are pulling their coins off exchanges and holding them tight. When you combine real utility, institutional adoption, regulatory clarity, and supply scarcity all happening at the same time, that's a recipe for something truly spectacular. The stars are aligning in a way we've never seen before with XRP. So get this, Black Swan Capitalist just dropped some pretty mind-blowing data. He's saying that most of the XRP sitting on exchanges has already vanished, gone. Picture this scenario. There's barely any liquidity left on these exchanges, right? So what happens when serious buyers come knocking with big money? The market has no choice but to gobble up whatever XRP is still available, and we're talking instantly. This brings up a fascinating question that's got everyone talking. Could we actually see all the XRP disappear from exchanges completely? I mean, think about it for a second. All right, let's dive into what Grok has to say about XRP supply, and this is where things get really interesting. Back in 2018, we had about 10 billion XRP floating around on exchanges. That was roughly 10 to 15% of the total supply during the peak of that bull run. Here's the thing though. All that high liquidity? It actually worked against us when the market crashed. There was just too much XRP available for people to dump. But fast forward to 2025, and wow, what a difference. We're now looking at only 3.8 billion XRP in total reserves. That's less than half of what we had in 2018. And here's what's making this even more exciting. Companies are now building actual XRP treasuries. They're literally locking away massive amounts of XRP and taking it off the market permanently. Plus, we're standing on the brink of institutional adoption like we've never seen before. And those ETFs we keep talking about? They're going to be hoarding enormous amounts of XRP too. So we've got way less supply available, but way more serious long-term demand coming. Can you see where this is heading? And this is where things get absolutely wild. You know that Shane Ellis theory we've all been talking about? Well, guess what? It's no longer just some crazy theory floating around Twitter. This thing is actually happening right before our eyes. Check this out. We just got this massive press release from SBI. And when I say massive, I mean massive. They're dropping $200 million in cold hard cash into Evernorth XRP. And here's the kicker. They're doing this primarily to buy XRP. We're not talking about some small investment here, folks. This is $200 million. That's the kind of institutional money that can absolutely send prices through the roof. The theory is becoming reality, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. So here's what's really happening with this money. It's going straight into buying XRP. This isn't some vague investment into Evernorth's general operations. Nope. We're talking about a full-on XRP accumulation strategy here. They're buying up as much XRP as possible, and then what? Locking it away, taking it completely off the market. This is the scarcity play we've been talking about, happening right in front of us. We now have 9 companies holding XRP in their treasuries. The newest one? Reliance Global Group just joined the party. And let me tell you, this isn't just some random trend. This is serious corporate adoption happening right before our eyes. These companies are putting their money where their mouth is, showing real confidence in XRP's long-term value and utility. Just look at this growing list of companies scooping up XRP like it's going out of style. But here's the crazy part. We haven't even seen the big wave yet. I'm talking about the massive institutional investors who are still sitting on the sidelines waiting for one thing: clear regulations. Once we get that regulatory clarity, buckle up. we're going to see non-stop institutional FOMO like you've never witnessed before. And I'm not talking about some quick 1 or 2 month pump here. This institutional buying frenzy is likely going to keep rolling all the way through 2026. Can you imagine what that's going to do to the price when billion-dollar institutions start competing for the remaining XRP supply?
Flare becomes top DeFi platform for XRP after FXRP launch.
Okay, check this out. Flare Network has become something absolutely massive. They're now the largest EVMD EFI ecosystem for wrapped XRP tokens. That's huge, and the numbers don't lie. Since Flare launched their FXRP token, their total value locked has skyrocketed by 37.9%. We're talking about $86.2 million worth of XRP now locked up on their network alone. But here's where it gets really interesting. Flare has this ambitious goal to lock away 5% of all XRP in existence. Let that sink in for a moment. 5% of the entire XRP supply. So tell me this, with all these institutions buying, companies building treasuries, ETFs coming, and Flare wanting to lock up 5% of the total supply, how do we not see massive scarcity hitting at some point? And here's my personal take. I'd be loading up on Flare while it's still sitting under 2 cents. Mark my words, Flare is going to be one of those coins that people will be kicking themselves for not buying at these ridiculously cheap prices. We're talking about future, I wish I could go back in time territory here. Okay, check this out. Flare Network has become something absolutely massive. They're now the largest EVMD EFI ecosystem for wrapped XRP tokens. That's huge, and the numbers don't lie. Since Flare launched their FXRP token, their total value locked has skyrocketed by 37.9%. We're talking about $86.2 million worth of XRP now locked up on their network alone. But here's where it gets really interesting. Flare has this ambitious goal to lock away 5% of all XRP in existence. Let that sink in for a moment. 5% of the entire XRP supply. So tell me this, with all these institutions buying, companies building treasuries, ETFs coming, and Flare wanting to lock up 5% of the total supply, how do we not see massive scarcity hitting at some point? And here's my personal take. I'd be loading up on Flare while it's still sitting under 2 cents. Mark my words, Flare is going to be one of those coins that people will be kicking themselves for not buying at these ridiculously cheap prices. We're talking about future, I wish I could go back in time territory here. And you know what? None of this was happening back in 2018. We didn't have anywhere near this kind of momentum building up behind XRP. Vincent Van Box just dropped this comment that really caught my attention. He said, "This news is absolutely huge and totally unexpected." Here's what's fascinating. We all thought Ripple was going to go head-to-head with Swift in some epic battle, right? But plot twist, that's not how they're playing this game at all. Instead, they're being super strategic about it. They're going the acquisition route. Buy the company, then simply swap out the back-end technology. It's actually genius when you think about it. Why fight the system when you can just become the system? Amazing strategy. Go Ripple and XRP. He's talking about this whole G Treasury situation. And honestly, what Ripple is doing here is absolutely brilliant. They're basically building the ultimate alternative to Swift. Picture this. If a bank gets fed up with Swift's slow, expensive system, they can just switch over to Ripple's solution instead. Simple as that. But here's where it gets really exciting. Once that first bank makes the jump and starts moving money around the world lightning fast for pennies on the dollar, it's going to create this massive domino effect. I love how he put it. Banks are going to start jumping off the Swift ship and hopping onto Ripple's yacht. That's honestly the perfect way to describe it because, let's be real, when you have a clearly better solution, people are going to use it. Think about what everyone wants when they're moving money. Fast, cheap, and secure. That's literally Ripple's 3-word elevator pitch. And when banks start seeing their competitors saving time and money while their customers are happier, well, FOMO kicks in real quick. But here's the thing. None of this was happening back in 2018. Now we've got Ripple actually collaborating with the Federal Reserve to update domestic payment systems. Can you believe that? And get this, the Federal Reserve is now looking into payment accounts that would give crypto and fintech companies direct access to Fed payment rails. This is huge. Everything we've been dreaming about, everything we thought would eventually happen someday. It's all coming together right now in 2025. You know what's crazy though? Back in 2018, if we saw news like this drop, XRP would have shot up 5 to 10% that same day. People would have gone absolutely wild. But here we are in 2025, and the market has matured so much that news alone doesn't move XRP's price anymore. We're all just sitting here patiently, waiting for the bigger catalysts to fall into place first. But honestly, this collaboration was always inevitable. We all knew this day would come. It was just a matter of when, not if.
Ripple working with the Fed? Yeah, this was always meant to happen. We just had to wait for the right moment. And speaking of the right moment, we got some absolutely massive news this morning from the Federal Reserve Payments Innovation Conference. Governor Chris Waller just dropped a bombshell announcement that could change everything. He's proposing something called a skinny master account, basically a streamlined version that gives legally eligible institutions direct access to Fed payment rails without needing to go through partner banks. It's like getting VIP access without all the red tape. Here's what's amazing about this. Every legally eligible entity could get one. The eligibility rules aren't changing, but the access just got way easier. This is huge news for companies like Custodia Bank and Kraken, who've been fighting for years to get traditional Fed master accounts. Custodia was literally ready to take the Fed to court over this. But here's where it gets really exciting for us. This could fast-track access for companies like Ripple and Anchorage, who just applied this year. We might actually see Ripple get a Fed master account by the end of 2025. Sure, it would be the light version without borrowing privileges, but honestly, Ripple doesn't need to borrow from the Fed anyway. Their balance sheet is already rock solid. Now, let me paint you the big picture here, because the catalysts lining up for this run could easily push XRP to $100. And I'm not just throwing numbers around. Listen closely. Hear me out. Anyone not paying attention to what's happening right now is going to miss the boat completely. They're going to panic sell at $10, $20, maybe $30, thinking they're smart by calling the top. Then they'll watch in horror as XRP keeps climbing because they didn't see the full picture. Picture this perfect storm. XRP ETFs bringing in massive institutional inflows, regulatory clarity finally here, Ripple potentially getting that Fed master account, ISO 2022 bringing real utility value to XRP, and then the cherry on top, exchange scarcity as all the XRP gets locked away during this run. When you stack all of that together, we're looking at price levels that are going to shock people. I honestly think $100 might just be where XRP takes a quick breather before pushing even higher. Let me give you the contrast between these three major runs we've seen. 2017 to 2018 was absolutely parabolic for XRP, pure retail FOMO and hype. 2021, there was way too much working against us. The SEC lawsuit, regulatory uncertainty, you name it. But 2025, there's literally nothing holding us back anymore. All the pieces are finally falling into place. So, until this all plays out, stay patient, stay positive, and let's get rich together. All right, everyone, that's a wrap on this breakdown. If this got you as excited as it got me, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And remember, we're not just watching history unfold here. We're part of it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you in the next one.